name is Brian Ellis. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Bezlio, and I have the best job. I have the best job because this is not my presentation, though. That one's better. That looks better. Apparently what I had was the template to the presentation. That wasn't going to turn out too well. But I have the best job because, you know, I get to work with an incredibly talented group of people and that makes amazing software. And then I get to stand up here and show you all the cool stuff that we're working toward and take credit for all of it. So, you know, I think that the first way that I have to start this is by talking about the team that's behind Bezlio and that's really building the rest of this out. Oh, come on, Prezi. All right, the team. So, you know, I think that when I was thinking about presenting this today, you know, one of the things that I really thought about was, like, making good software development is a lot like jazz. You know, and even if people aren't, like, into jazz, you probably know the basic idea about jazz. That, you know, people take different turns, you know, that it's a good collaboration where you can really play to the strengths of each of the people. And, you know, when you bring it together as a whole, you really have the best experience and you come up with the best product. So this is our team, Bezlio Dev Team Odyssey. So I'll talk more about this later. We use Scrum software development methodology. And immediately I heard Greg groan in the back. Greg's one of our board of directors, along with Dave Lohman here, sitting here as well. And Greg got to sit through my product development plan, where I probably gave him a good 40-minute intro to Scrum and Agile software development methodology. But I'm not going to do that. But basically, Scrum teams are about 5 to 10 people in size, and they work as little cohesive units. So when we're looking at this, you know, we built our first Scrum team, and that's who you see here. And we wanted to come up with a name and a tagline for it. So for us, it was really, you know, we ended up coming up with Bezlio Dev Team Odyssey. This is our badge. You'll see it on my laptop and a couple other things, and various other people's laptops around here. But to us, you know, it was really an odyssey because we were going into uncharted territories. We were designing the future of this software, of this product. In a lot of cases, you know, there are no roadmaps of where we're going. So we're really going out there and learning as we go through here and figuring things out. So, you know, I think every good presentation starts with a generic quote that people just randomly pull off the internet. Everybody's done it, don't deny it. But talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. Again, you know, I really think that software development, one developer, you can only be so much. But a team of developers, you can really create greatness because, as you know, I'll kind of go through our team members here. All of them represent different properties, and all of them work in different ways. Later on, you know, as we continue growing, I'm not going to have the opportunity to, oh my gosh, to sit here and necessarily go through it. So in this presentation, I want to kind of talk about all the different team members and the roles that they play with the company, and you can also appreciate their mustaches. So Seth Remington, sitting back there. You know, Seth is one of those guys that loves the hardest problems. And, you know, I'll talk about how we got to where we're at now, you know, the different decisions that we made, the different technology that we learned, and how each of these different people have had a big part of shaping that future for us. Bob Schnabel, you know, he's been a long time, you know, best friend of myself. He's also a very talented developer, worked at SaberLogic for a long time, did consulting and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, as he started stepping up into his role, you know, I mentioned this Scrum, and as he's acting more and more as like a Scrum master, helping us keep on track, you know, working with the development team and bringing people up along with him. We've got Joel Hines, unfortunately unpictured. Joel's right there. Joel is an exceptionally young, talented developer. We lucked out so much in finding him. But, you know, he's been able to have a big impact. He came in and just like, you know, I think his first day, he's like, all right, let's go with the hard problems. You know, as soon as you give somebody a problem and they just like get it done, you know that you've got a real talent. Michael Spray came, he worked with Joel before, so they kind of came as a pair. Quiet, but highly effective, just knocks things out. And it's like, he's so quiet that I'm always like one of those people, I'm like, boy, does he get it? It's like you like talk about a problem, you're like, oh, I don't know, did he understand what I was trying to get to? And then like 2 days later, it's like, oh yeah, I got that done, here's how it is. It's like, oh, that's beautiful. Anya Hodovskaya, I don't think she's here today. She had twins, so she's still working through that and the magic of motherhood, although I don't know if she'd call it as magical right now. But she was a longtime SaberLogic alumni. She worked with us back when we were SaberLogic. She actually worked on different product lines, and then she went and she worked out other places for a while. And then we were able to convince her to come back and work with us. And that's pretty cool because she came back with a lot of like other experiences, working in other software teams and stuff like that. And she's brought a lot of that to the market. And last but not least, Kevin Mansfield is right there. Kevin is he's I suppose a UX designer would probably be the best way of describing him, but really a visionary in terms of how to make things usable. As I kind of go through this presentation, you're going to see that that's been our goal, is that, Adam talked about it already. We started with power. We started making the most powerful platform that we possibly could, no boundaries, just let you do whatever you wanted to do. And once we got it out there, then we started looking at it and saying, how can we build this thing to be easier? How can we build this into a new system of building and deploying mobile apps that simplifies it for everybody? Because it was a passion of ours to look at it. We worked with all of these like small and mid-sized manufacturing companies, and a lot of times this technology was it was inaccessible to them because it costs $100,000 or something like that. And it's like, for those of you who work in IT, like go up to management and say, boy, I'd like a mobile app. It's going to be about $100,000. Can I get that budgeted out? Yeah, they're not going to be too down with that. But your competitors are. I'm going to keep moving my mouse because otherwise it's going to go to sleep on me. But your competitors are. And there's no reason for it to be that way. So that's what we wanted to do, is come up with a new way of developing and deploying these applications, getting your data on mobile devices in an easy way, and taking out all the headache of it. So that's our team. I don't know what. Oh, Prezi, thank you for that. That was enjoyable. All right, so we covered a little bit of this, but I'm going to cover a little bit of a path to today. So me and Adam both do different timelines, but my timeline is going to be a little bit different than his, just because it's going to talk about the epoch of an idea. So 2016, the initial idea for Bezlio development begins. As many of you may or may not know, Adam and I wrote an application before called Logicity, and it got pretty big. A lot of people started using it. They're kind of excited about it. And one of the things we looked at was people couldn't run it on mobile devices. That was really the apex of the idea, or the epoch of the idea, I suppose is the right term, was that you couldn't run it on a mobile device, and people wanted that. So we started looking and we started thinking about how can you put that data on a mobile device, and then that created the idea for how the network communication happens with Bezlio. And then once we had that, we started looking at it and saying, okay, this thing is actually a lot bigger than just Crystal, than just Logicity or anything like that. So it kind of, I wouldn't like to say spiraled out of control. I'd like to say spiraled into control. But it became a much bigger idea. It became much more ambitious, but it also became much more exciting. So 2017, we did our initial product release to pilot customers. So we picked about 500 users, put them on the platform, wanted to see what happened. And that's where Adam talked about, one of the things we do, and this is a part of agile software development, is we learned from those customers. We talked to them. We saw that mobile was the bigger problem to them. We were looking at it originally, like it could be a dashboard platform, it could be mobile, it could be all of these different things. We let our users tell us how they wanted to use the platform, the things that excited them, and then we leaned into that idea even harder. So then in June of 2018, I'm going to skip an important part here, is that we secured the initial fundraising round in March of 2018. Adam mentions it, I mentioned it as well, because this is a really important part to us. Because before, it was our idea. It was our dream. Once we get the funding, it means that other people saw and understood our dream, and they believed in our dream too. So that really gave us the confidence to say, yeah, we're going all in on this. This is the product that we want to build. This is what we're going to be. So then, as Adam mentioned too, we spent that time and we looked at our users and we found that the biggest problem that people were trying to solve was that mobility problem. So before, if you wanted to deploy on a phone, you had to deploy through the web app. In June of 2018, we released our first mobile client. And that was a big push for this development team. That was 6 months of really, really hard work to get there. But we were able to release that out there. And then we started seeing like, oh yeah, this is working even better because we can add things that people wanted offline, on mobile platforms, like offline support for both reading data and writing data. Things like access to the native hardware features, things like barcode scanning, being able to use GPS data, being able to use any of the hardware that's in your phone. And as you sit through these presentations over the next couple days, or the next 2 days, you'll get to see some of this. Because the one thing that I'm a little bit remiss about is that most of you probably don't even know the coolest things that Bezlio can do right now. But you'll get to see that as a part of that. Now, I've got another one on here. This one's a little bit weird. But July of 2018, the widget concept was created. And this is a new idea. And this is going to be foundational to the rest of the things that you're going to see. And really, when we started getting very ambitious about it because of an idea that we had. And this was, funny enough, it started with an idea between me and Seth. We were just sitting around talking one day. And we said, can you run a bezel in a bezel? And so we were like, well, it should work that way. So we just tried it. The ability to embed multiple bezels inside of it. And then once we saw that, we kind of looked at it and we said, oh, this is a whole different way of thinking about this. Because you don't have to design the entire application, but you can design chunks and pieces. And as a piece to that as well, we had this idea of widgets. Because, the initial foundation of Bezlio was all on the design being done in HTML. And does anybody love HTML? No, nobody's particularly passionate about it. That's good. I was getting a good laugh out of the audience. That works out well for me. But we wanted to start that. So this idea of widgets started off with the idea of that we could create our own tags inside of that HTML, and that could be like bezel calendar. Or in this case, bezel table selector. And you guys might not even know this, but these are features that are already inside of there. It's one line of HTML that allows you to build an entire app out just in minutes. I did a presentation for wherever Bruce is at, right in front of me, the Epicor users group in Minneapolis, and I was able to do in a presentation 2 different bezels. Just here's how you could build something, and it wasn't easy. I think the one that I did was, here was a map that pulled your GPS coordinates and then mapped all of your customers around you. And I built it in 30 minutes. And so that's what we're trying to do is how do you take the idea that we had about making the big ideas, but how do you make it easier? How do you make it more accessible? So in July of 2018, we started adding those native hardware features. Again, we'll talk more about that. But a piece to it is not just getting your data on your phone, but phones are a whole different interface. Phones are a whole different idea than even application development. And I think that it's really bad whenever software developers come out with an application for their phone and it's just their application skinned to work on a phone. Because you're not really, all you're getting is just kind of the accessibility, but you're losing the rest of it. Things like being able to just scan a barcode using the camera. Things like push notifications. So, that was a new idea in mobile software development is, hey, if I need to get your attention right now because, you've got 20 coins ready in Farm World or whatever, and you need to get on there. No, unfortunately, people abuse push notifications. But if you want to get a hold of somebody right now, the ideas in the past have been you send them an email, but who's checking their email that frequently? I mean, probably, but you shouldn't. Versus the ability to have one click, and let's say you're on your shop floor and somebody needs help. Being able to send a push notification directly to a supervisor to tell them, hey, your users need help right now. So really being able to take all of those native features and make them easily accessible so that it's not just about building bezels that run on your phone, but it's about building bezels that use all of the power of your phone, that new hardware, all that capability to make a better interface for your system. And then November of 2018, mobile clients released on app stores. That was a lot of work that Bob put in, but we are officially in the Play Store and in the iOS App Store. So now you can just search and install it. Before that, we were in something called Test Flight, which is a beta system. So a lot of you have already been running it, but now it just makes it a little bit easier. All right. So now we're going to get into the fun part. 2019 Q1. And as I mentioned earlier, I sat down with the dev teams, with the board of directors, with management, with everybody else, and we looked at Bezlio, very from the outside in, and we said, what's the most important part? What's the most important feature that we can add in next? And to us, it was making the easiest way to build powerful mobile apps. It was, how do we make this thing easier now? It's already powerful, users like it in some ways, but how can we make it easier? So the goal was our customers wanted to use Bezlio not just to write simple dashboards, but they wanted to be able to change their business processes with mobile technology. That was the first thing that we understood, looking at what our customers liked, what really drew them to it. So we started first by making the platform powerful, by giving developers full access to the mobile hardware with just a few lines of code. And now our goal is to make it even easier. So, with that, I'm proud to be able to introduce the next phase of Bezel building, which is going to be our new builder. So I'm going to start. This is the culmination of that process between myself, the dev team, Kevin. This is a huge amount of Kevin's work, and while he was busy making chicken soup yesterday, he was also sending me some random screenshots that I could really show it. But this is going to be the new way that you can make mobile apps. So I'm going to start, and we're going to go section by section, and then we're going to dig in on some of these. But the first part is the code components. And for anybody who's already built bezels, this part is familiar to you. There's data subscriptions. Data subscriptions are, how you access your data in your network. But you can see now that you can also see the fields underneath it. That was a request that some of our users had. The ability to create variables and functions. That's all pretty basic stuff, because when we looked at it, our user base was mostly fine with the coding pieces to it. JavaScript, TypeScript, and it's not a lot of code, and there's code snippets and things like that, but the design was the hard part for them. So that's the part that we tried to make the easiest. So that starts with this idea here of our UI widgets. Some of this is already in the code editor itself, but a lot of this is going to be new. And basically, UI widgets are drag and drop the ability to create these applications in terms of being able to design the screens out. And I'm actually going to lean in on this one a little bit more, because there was a cool feature that happened here. When we came up with the idea of widgets, we were looking at it and we said to ourselves, boy, I see a problem. If a designer created an application using a widget and somebody didn't upgrade their smartphone application, that widget's not going to work. That app's not going to work. That's not going to give an experience that our users expect out of it. So we looked at this problem and we leaned in really hard and we said, how can we make this better? What can we do that's, to improve this? So we're actually using a brand new emerging technology called web components, which allows us to actually inject these widgets into the browser and into the app so that you always have the latest version of the widgets available to you. Whenever you run it, anytime we publish a new widget, it's immediately available in both platforms, even if your users haven't updated their phone. Not only that, but as you'll see later, there's properties windows and things like that. So the next piece that we have is the UI structure. And I'll show you some more pieces on this as well. But again, it's taking the HTML that was confusing away from it and giving you a different kind of representation. So in here, you can have a page, a row, and a column, and then maybe a header and a button. It's simple things like that. It's how you lay this stuff out. You don't have to know the HTML behind it, because you probably don't care about the HTML behind it. What you care about is making attractive apps. Also, because of Kevin's work on styling and things like that, your apps are going to look and feel really good. Because I know that as a developer, I've always hated that. I'm not a designer. So it's like I could put the most powerful application together, but it's like the UX portion, I just kind of, I don't like how these buttons line up and things like that. But I can make it easier for myself. So what we started with was was really, again, like with Bezlio to begin with and with this, is we're building the application that we wanted to see out there. So the last part is the properties, and I'm going to show a breakout of this. But basically, instead of having to know things like how to change the color in HTML, how to do span tags or do anything like that, is we actually standardize the properties per widget so that you can just override those properties. Anybody who's familiar with Visual Studio at all, what we did is very similar in terms of concept to how Visual Studio did their design work. Because that was I think that a lot of people underestimate what that was to the business software development world, because what it did is it brought it down. It made it easier for people. And and this may be a big statement to make, but it's like when I look at it, I want to make Bezlio as close to the Visual Studio for mobile app development as we possibly can, and then hopefully better. And the last part is our visual editor. So again, being able to drag those widgets directly inside of here and build these screens out. So you can see header, button, tabs. You saw that in the UI structure. We're giving you two representations. We're giving you a graphical representation, and we're kind of showing you that code framework of how we get there. So this is an example of what you should expect with this new development environment. And I'm going to, again, we're not a publicly traded company, so you have that, like, if you've ever been to the presentations, they're like, this is forward, this is like, there's always that standard disclaimer. I'll make that same standard disclaimer, that some of these features may change depending on how things go when we're developing this out, blah, blah, blah. But this is what our goal is, that you have a page here, and you can just look through those widgets, search, and then you can just drag and drop items in there. So I want a data table. I can just drag it in, set the properties, and then I've got a data table in my app. And then once you have it in there, either by selecting it from the UI tree or selecting it from the layout engine, is these properties windows. And again, this is kind of a cool feature, so I'll kind of toot our team horn on this, because the properties actually come from the widget itself. So each one can have its own properties window. There's not like a generic properties window you got to learn. All of them are publishing their own properties. So you can see in here, I've got a property for a header up here. And you can say what the text is, what the properties are for it, what the layout is, margin, padding, all of these different things. It's taking that HTML, so you don't have to know HTML, but you can still get in there and tweak it and do whatever you want. And build these different kind of layouts and everything else. And then on top of that, at the top, there's properties and there's actions. So again, standardizing how this whole thing works, you can click on the Actions tab, and then you can add things like click events or different events like that. We're really trying to put it all into one place to make it easy for you. And this is another one that I think is pretty interesting. This may be a little bit codery, so depending on how much you've done of this, you'll either be excited or you're going to think this is very stupid. But basically, in the UI structure, there's the ability to do if statements. There's the ability to do for statements, so like loops and stuff like that. And there's the ability to do a hidden statement. And part of the problem that you would have whenever you're doing it in HTML is you didn't really have a good visual representation to it because HTML kind of wraps around stuff, the content. So what we wanted to do is give this specific color coding inside of the UI structure so it was easy to look at it and see which parts are looping, which parts have a hidden flag on it, which parts have an if statement. We're really trying to give a good visual representation, replacing the HTML portion with our own kind of UI builder. Oh, there's one here. All that being said, one of the big things to us and one of the key things is that we're gonna try to never handcuff you guys. So despite all of that, we also have a custom HTML inside of here as well. So if the builder's not doing it for you, if you want to do some crazy stuff, you could just add your own HTML pieces in here as well. So we're keeping the power in addition to providing you a framework to make it easier. And this is another one that I'm pretty excited about. This is our live preview window. So as you go through, as you build these bezels out, as you do the development, we're going to have a live preview window that you can actually have up on a separate monitor or something like that, so you're not constantly switching back and forth. That's showing you your layout, the ability to specify the type of device, because we don't just support phones. Obviously we support PC and tablets. We also support like Android TV. So if you're doing shop floor presentation or shop floor data presentation or anything like that, you can use Android TV. But this will give you a way about getting at least a rough idea of what your layout's going to look like on the source device you're trying to deploy to. So that's 2019 Q1. That's what we're working on right now. That's what we've been working toward for a little bit here. That we've been adding a lot of different things in to get ready for that. But that's our big push right now, is making Bezlio easier. So I'm going to push out a little bit longer, and we're going to talk about 2019 Q2. And again, this is where I want to talk about the idea of agile software development methodology. We use it. We use a variety of it called Scrum. And basically what that means is that our product constantly evolves depending on what our customers need from it. And our customers are a combination of the internal business people. It's a combination of our actual customers. It's a combination of our sales engineers and all of this information. So although we set priorities, we may end up changing these as we kind of go along based on what we're seeing from the market, based on how our users are doing it, everything like that. But this is roughly what our plans are. One is to unify the client experience. So right now, if you use webapp.bezel.io on your phone, or you use the mobile app, the interface is different. On web app, it's more of like an accordion. On the phone, it's more like icon and all this kind of stuff. We want one client experience. So we're going to bring that together. We're going to have one client experience. And as a part of that, we're going to separate out the administrative pieces from the client pieces. So when the client goes in there, they only have the client experience. Administrators have their own toolkits for managing users, managing bezels, doing security, and all that kind of stuff. Makes our life a lot easier, keeping them separate as well, because we don't have to worry about hiding those pieces. We can make sure that the client experience is very high all the way through. We're going to continue expanding the widgets library. So right now there's already a PDF widget out there. So if you've got, a file system plugin or something like that, you want to display a PDF, there's one line of code and you can put a PDF viewer inside of any of your applications. We're trying to make this easier. We're going to continue expanding this. But again, this is an area where you guys can help us by saying, it would be cool if. When I did consulting, I always told people that was my favorite phrase, is anytime I'd sit down with business leaders and stuff like that, is have them tell me, it would be cool if. Because what came next was like the real stuff. It's like, I like the hard problems. We've always liked the hard problems. And we want people that are visionary about it. So if you're looking at this and you're looking at these different widgets and you're like, wouldn't it be really cool if I could do X? Like, tell us. Because we want to know that. You're making us better by telling us. You're not, we'll never be frustrated by users talking about cool things that they would like to see in our platform. The third thing we want to do is add pre-built templates for common screen designs. So again, we're constantly evolving toward making this easier. The first thing we have to do is build the builder. But once we have the builder, we can start giving you the ability to have these different templates that are common layouts based on things that we know people want to do. So in here, we've got a blank template, a blank TV template, a TV dashboard, mobile data list, data table, dashboard, 2-column layout. And these are going to evolve and these are going to change. But the goal is that, as you saw the properties window and the UI tree earlier, is that you'll click into here and say, I want, a mobile data list. And it's going to have all the UI elements already in there. All you got to do is wire them up. So that's what we're going to be working on toward there. So 2019 Q3. Now, this is where we're getting a little bit further out. You know, we tend to plan a little bit shorter, but I'm going to kind of talk about what our goals are, and they're going to be a lot less interactive and a lot less fun. I apologize for the presentation. But in 2019 Q3, we want to focus on the admins. So right now, again, when we looked at this product, we have a team of 6 engineers plus myself building this thing out. So, you know, we have to prioritize. So our priorities are making it easier first, making it a better platform. And in the meantime, we are taking on the burden of helping you manage your users. You know, in terms of deploying users, in terms of deploying applications and things like that. It's part of that consultative experience is that we're working with you to help you do that part. 2019 Q3, we want to start giving you better tools to do that. We know that you need those better tools, especially for like enterprise account management. You know, it's one thing to manage 10 users, it's another thing to manage 1,000 users. And we want both sides of that coin. So we're going to build better interfaces for administering the system. Like I said, we're separating out the admin and the client experience and really going from there. So 2019 Q4 is kind of the last part. I looked at this and I was saying that, like, I want you to come to Mainspring next year as well. So I hope every year that you come to Mainspring, you're going to see, like, all right, this is the next stuff that's coming down here. So we're only going to do 1 year at a time. We've already started this project as well, and I'm pretty proud of where we're heading with it. Unfortunately, again, priorities and time. But we're going to overhaul the Bezlio Remote Data Broker. So this is the piece of software that runs in your network that's providing your users access to that data. And we have a new version of it based on a technology called Electron. If any of you use Visual Studio Code or any of the, or Atom or anything like that, that's based on what they call, those are Electron apps. And the cool thing about Electron apps is that they can self-upgrade. So what our goal is there is that we're not going to push the software directly to your server, but your server is always going to have a copy of the latest version of it with the ability to click one button and have it auto-upgrade the software for you. So again, simplifying the administrative experience to this as well. And we want to add in data discovery tools to make finding data to use in bezels easier. We've started playing around with some technology, like if anybody's familiar with or have heard the term GraphQL before. It's a data discovery environment where you can kind of start one point and it kind of walks you through it. Different things like that that we're going to be looking at to say, how can you get a better understanding of where your data's at, and how can we build you better tools to help you consume that data? So again, that's kind of where we're trying to head with this whole thing. But again, if you guys come in and you have like hundreds of different widgets that you think would be cool, like some of this stuff maybe get moved around depending. But that's roughly where our plan is right now in terms of product development. So with that, I have different contact details up here, but I'll start off. Does anybody have any questions, any thoughts, anything like that while you have the full audience of the Bezlio staff here when we're talking about our product development roadmap and where we're heading? Yes, sir.
I was interested by the custom HTML area.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been implemented? Is that the work in progress?
Yeah, we currently when you look at the what we're calling the code editor right now, what's custom builder, that has its own HTML editor built into it. The latest features that you're going to see, and this should be rolled out this Friday, I believe, is that we have IntelliSense built into it, or a form of so it'll be doing some autocomplete and stuff like that. But yeah, you can get into there and use the custom HTML editor in Code Editor today.
Does it allow script text?
No, but you can add functions. You can either hijack any of the existing functions. So, and we're going to rename these so that they make a little bit more sense. But there's an ng on in it and an ng after view in it. Those are both like your lifecycle hooks for when the application starts. And then from there, there's a wide variety of different ways to add your code to it. So you don't need script tags. You should be able to do it all inside of the functions themselves, even doing things like using require.js. So if you wanted to bring third-party libraries in, you can actually do those in the code sections that are already there, those code hooks, and then hook into it that way. So we don't allow script tags, but at the same time, I don't think that you'll need script tags when you really get into using it.
Okay.
Cool?
Out in our knowledge base, there's an article about using functions. So if you go to support.bezlio, there's an article about using functions that might be kind of helpful to kind of frame exactly how that works.
Any other questions? Yes?
The mobile builder there, do you have that's how it helps a tablet or phone or things like that? You're gonna have to, are there you have to build each one, or is there kind of
no.
some sort of cascading?
It'll still be, all the apps will still be mobile responsive. And actually, when you look at how the designer works itself, it simplifies building mobile responsive applications into it. What we wanted to give you was a representation of when you're deploying that app to multiple devices, that you can see how those layouts are going to be affected based on that. Yes, sir?
Within the mobile designer, within the graphic designer, are we going to be able to set like low order priority for mobile, like, you know, when it's on a tablet, I want this to left and this to right, as opposed to top bottom on a phone, or reverse the order?
In an instance like that, you would probably end up deploying differently. We are using Flexbox. And in the HTML, so it's all like Flexbox oriented, in the HTML, you could do those kind of things, but those representations become very, very hard to think of a standardized way of doing it. So basically, if you know HTML at all, like your call spans, like that's really the part that we're trying to integrate into there, is like how many columns it's taking up, and then that could be different based on the different devices that you're running it on. But in terms of like fully changing the layout depending on device, our thinking was, and this is what I've seen out of most people, is that they're developing bezels usually with an interface in mind. Usually with like the default. They may run it on multiple things, but most bezels, they're like, this is a phone, this is a tablet, this is a TV. So we didn't put as much time into that piece, because I think that I think that most people would be designing with a specific piece of hardware in mind.
Something else to think about, like what they talked about before, the idea of a bezel within a bezel. So one thing you could always do would be just kind of have traditional tags around like the different kind, and just have like a different bezel for the different layouts. So this would be one bezel you're pushing
Can we
out.
call that bezelception?
Bezelception, yes. That is actually been referred to that way, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what we called it. Yeah.
No, I'm bad. I haven't gotten in and done any programming with this, but from data analytics, will you have tools that can give me this data set, except now I want to do like statistical, like standard deviations. I want to target, here's where I'm having some anomalies. Is that going to be in there, or is it in
Yes.
there already?
There's actually this, and this is like one of these features that people really don't talk about yet, but we actually have a full version of BRDB that runs in Python, which is the language for data analytics now. We do have plugins for things like Accord.net that can do standard deviation analysis, can do some simple regression and things like that. But our goal has been that usually when you get into like the hardcore data analytics, you want that to run on its own system. So we actually have a Python version of BRDB that can run any Python script tag the same way that it runs like with SQL Server or something like that now. And that's pretty cool because we can even connect into things as advanced as TensorFlow. So if you're getting into deploying like machine learning language and environments and stuff like that, Bezlio can actually be the front end to those systems as well. The other option would be like we could write a plugin for R, but I think that most people are probably more into the Python side for data analytics now.
Is that available?
Yes. Yep. Just talk to us. We'll get you, hooked up on. Any other questions? Yes.
I know like the database API is a given, but are there any other
Yep. There's a bunch of ways. We try to keep it open for you. So all of our plugins are out on GitHub right now. So including, we actually have a Microsoft Visual Studio like stub project that kind of gets you started if you wanted to write your own. But for the most part, you wouldn't need to in general, I think. We have a generic REST API, so you can use that. We already have things like Excel, if you've got Excel data that you want to pull from. We've got APIs for different ERP systems and CRM systems. So we've got one for Epicor, for Visual. We've got one for Salesforce. We've got a lot of different APIs that you can call on. And the neat thing about them is they're all like just reflected into it. So, you don't have to worry about like recompiling the plugin as you upgrade versions. They should move along with it. But there's a lot of different ways that you can access that data, a file system.
Does the rest support like your standard nouns, your put, your get, your post?
Yep. It's a very generic wrapper for REST. So, it's just kind of your generic OAuth OAuth 2 supported wrapper. And you should be able to point it to just about anything, and you just kind of give it the URL, the method, and what data you want to pass into it, and it'll just work for you. Yes?
So are you telling me because it's on GitHub, it's open source?
The plugins. Yeah, the rest of this we're keeping under wraps for the time being. I think that I'd get in trouble if I put the rest of it out there. But yeah, all of the plugins are. There's various other bits that are out there if you go to github.com/Bezlio.
Because when you describe the software behind it, I was getting the impression that your vision for the software is it to be open source with the like forms and the stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a discussion that we've had a lot of because, and those are waters that we'll be navigating. What pieces are okay to put out and what pieces are kind of like the secret sauce that you kind of want to keep hidden. My personal theory and philosophy on it is that at some point in time, the network becomes the value, that it stops being like the worry becomes less and less of people recreating it, but you've created so much value in this integrated network. But those are things that we're going to be evaluating as we look through here is like what parts are acceptable, like our widgets library or something like that. Are we interested in putting those things out there so other people can contribute? Because our goal of making plugins open sourced is that we want our users to collaborate with us. We want people to be talking with us. If somebody's a software developer and they've got some good ideas, we'll take those. We want to be inclusive and open to a developer community because if you look at what Bezlio really is that it's both solutions for companies that don't have developers, and it's also a really good developer platform. So that's what we're trying to do is make that available for both people and for both teams while still staying in business. Yeah, the important part there.
I've always wondered how people who do open source code stay in business because it's open source.
Yeah. What you'll see is, especially if you work with, if you spend some time on GitHub and you look at how public companies play, how they navigate those waters, is usually they will open source the parts of them that are, that are kind of generic. Snapchat has a lot of different things that they put out in GitHub and stuff like that, or Kik, or I forget who it was. And you see Microsoft and you see all these different companies that are really looking at it, and to them, eventually the value is the network. It becomes the interconnection with everything else that ends up becoming the real value powerhouse driver thing to it. And I suppose now that's what we're building, is we're building, the value chain of the network and what all that kind of stuff represents. So although it is something that, we're passionate about because we benefit obviously from open source technology, we're trying to be strategic in terms of giving back to the community as well, and engaging in the community. And for any of you guys that are interested, one cool thing I think that we do that a lot of other companies don't is that we have our Slack channel You guys can join our Slack channel. And from there, you can actually communicate to our developers as well. So if you have questions, thoughts, ideas, and stuff like that, maybe someday we'll have to ratchet that down depending on, I need my developers to keep developing so I can continue to look good when I give these presentations. But other than that, we want to be there. We want to talk to you. We want to hear your ideas. Because in the reality of it is like, yeah, this product is my passion, and this is my, this is like culmination of a lot of ideas and a lot of sleepless nights and things like that. But in the end, it's for you. It's really for you guys. So it's like, I'm not going to tell you how it should be. What I like to do is like hear from you your ideas. Now, I may not listen to them, because I may have different thoughts as well. But I want to hear ideas. So that's the one thing, you guys have my contact information. I'm always available. Call, email, anything like that. Like, I want to hear from you as well. So please do. Yes?
Sorry.
No, believe me, I would much rather have that. I didn't know if I was going to get any questions, and I'm like, what am I going to do for the next 20 minutes?
I'll say that I'll just respond to what you just said. I really appreciate that the open source nature of the plugins. Have you ever used a product and felt like you're the only person on earth using it?
Mm-hmm.
No community or anything around it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is the next generation of software, is what we're trying to do here. And it's the funny, it's a strange little story because it's one that I've told so many times now, and it was like such just an offhand statement that somebody made. But when we closed our office, we sold our building in Wadsworth, and we moved into this awesome space. There's a group there that were moving our desks, and there was like the project manager who was like overseeing the process of them tearing down and moving our desks and stuff like that. And it's not where you expect to hear like a motivational speech that kind of like changes your way of thinking about it. But it's like he said that, that we started off with the manufacturing economy and we moved to a service economy, and now we're moving to an experience economy. That it's not necessarily just about the product, but it's the whole experience that you have with the product that matters. And what we want to do is, we did consulting for all these years, is that we wanted to make an experience that was the same as what we were providing to our customers for all that time. That you're bringing in people that care about your problems, that care about what you're trying to do, that are excited about technology and want to make you excited about it as well. And I think if we can get that together, and if we can take the energy that's in this room, that's in our offices upstairs and things like that, and we can really build this into an experience of people working together toward this thing, then the success follows. But it's so much the experience. Why do people love Slack? Because it's the experience of it. Honestly, like Slack is just kind of fun. I remember when we first started using it, when we first started talking about using it, I'm like, that's a chat app. It's like we already have Skype for Business, or I had IRC before that, or all these kind of things. Then you get into it, you're like, oh, okay, this is something different. There's a community of people that are building add-ons for it. They're sharing add-ons for it. And that's one of the things that you can do with Bezlio as well, is that if we can build a better community, then the work that you guys do, you can share with your peers and they can share with you. In the meantime, we're working our asses off to make this platform better, to make it more powerful, to give you more features, but the community can really make it something else too. That's like what I was mentioning about like the power of the network. Is really, it's not the network, it's the community that you build around it. Because I'll guarantee you give me 5 years and, of my mind of where we're trying to head with this, and you give me an engaged community that's involved with the process, then I could put the whole thing out on GitHub. You could open source the whole thing because people are still going to you because of the experience. They're not going to roll their own on Azure and do all this other kind of stuff because that's not the value. That's not the power. We're not there yet, but we're working on it.
The thing I add is the plugins being open sourced is that does have that the Bezels themselves and the parts that are not hard coded at all are the parts that configure the solution. So, for example, Bob made a bezel that opens his garage door. You could do all that with the tools we have, and Bob could share it with,
Not his garage door, though.
So it's like, the plugin side of it is what you can talk to and what you can do. And the Bezlio side of it, all those can be exported and shared and sent all around to each other. So the only parts that are closed would be the app itself, and parts of BRDB that live inside your network.
So what time is the session over?
I think we got until 10:30.
Whoa. Well, everybody's going to have a chance to get to the bathroom unless you got to.
Our break was supposed to run until 10:45, so we can just
Okay.
go a little longer, just talking a lot and good stuff. So.
Yeah. So does anybody else have any questions? We do have plenty of time. Yes.
So we reviewed the software, we looked at it, and our culture is an old style factory. And nobody's really interested in that point. I would be the admin, but I'm stretched too far. I'm like the maintenance guy. It's electrical somehow, it's a computer, so I can.
Yep. Yeah.
So I wasn't able to push it, but I can see the value. Is there a part that is an end user configuration, which means the guy with the phone on the floor who doesn't know how the data get there, doesn't even know what he just knows, I want to see what my labor tickets are today.
Yep.
Is there something he can drag and drop and start getting that in? Do you have anything like that developed?
So this is where we changed ideas a little bit, because the same question that you have was one that kept coming up, and that's why we added this idea of consultative sales. So what it is that the sales team works with you, our incredibly talented sales engineers that are mostly around that back table over there and probably scattered. But what they do is they work with you to understand what your actual desires are. And it's the thing is you're talking with consultants that have been doing this for 15 years, a lot of them. So you're not going to say it'd be nice if I had a screen that could do X, Y, and Z. You're going to say, hey, I need to report labor better. I need an easier way to issue material. I need something like that. And they're going to sit down, show you, come up with a pilot project, and really see you all the way through that process. And that could even be including working with management. One of the things that we have is an incredibly talented sales staff as well that'll help you position the product to show management why it matters, what value they're getting out of it. So that was what I would encourage you to do with that, is that if you have something like that, and that goes for everybody, because IT budgets we know are thin. IT time is even thinner. The worst day of my life of being an IT administrator is when, phone systems suddenly become under our purview, or the printers and stuff like that. Because like you said, all right, I've already got all these other things going on, and then management treats you like a additive cost situation, and not really being able to come in here as a thought leader and say, hey, we can do this better. Because the thing that I encourage people to do, and this goes back to why we built Bezlio in the first place, or why we even started SaberLogic, was I got tired of walking into these companies that were saying exactly that. They're like, oh, no, we're fine. We've been doing it for 40 years. We know what's going on. And when the reality is employees were walking through the door with technology that was sometimes 5 to 10 years newer than any technology they were going to work on when they're there. And that was frustrating to me because you would look at the experience that you had as a user, as a consumer user, and it was a very nice experience. It was polished. It's you think about Facebook, you don't upgrade Facebook. It upgrades itself, for everything bad that it is, social networks are. The client experience is very good. And they push the boundaries of technology. And it's why doesn't business also do that? Why doesn't business look at this and say, these are valuable things. We can add value. And what I'm trying to tell people now, or what I started telling people, is that because even if you aren't, your competitors are. And this technology is coming. And what we wanted to do was be the first one out here to say, you can bring that technology down. You can bring it downstream, and that anybody can have access to this stuff. You don't have to be, a company like Gojo that has probably 50 programmers working for them. You can be that, small company, but still leverage the latest in technology to make your processes better. And that's, and this is my soapbox moment, but to me that is the new American manufacturing, is that it's automation, that it's technology, that it's the creative use and application of technology that really separates things. It's how can you be faster? How can you be more responsive? How can you be a better supplier to your customers? And technology can help in so many ways. So that's where we share that passion, and our sales engineers share that passion. So if you get a chance, talk to Glenn or somebody like that. He's all the time got these different ideas about, we can process this thing better, and we'll show you the way, and we'll show you how it pays for itself, and then even develop the whole thing for you, if it really comes down to it. We are passionate about this thing spreading. We're passionate about that technology getting out there, and we want to help you. Any other questions? Yeah.
Can this program keep track of time cards and stuff like that?
Yes. Now, again, Bezlio is an interface to various other systems.
Yeah, because I worked at a factory, and their technology is very archaic.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
They kept track of orders with sheets and ran around trying to figure out where the sheets were.
I didn't come here to get insulted.
Yeah.
I mean,
Brian is obviously joking. He's a technology person.
no, but and so when I went to this owner and said, well, I can make your life a whole lot easier. Yeah, sure, it's a good idea, and then it's not a high priority.
Yeah.
How do you get these people who, like you said, 40 years, it's a family-owned business, it's been good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change it. I have a customer that I've had for 20 years, and I'm just going to.
You want me to tell you the sad reality in some ways to it is that, and we always found this as a consultant, is that sometimes just having somebody else tell you the same message has a lot of value. We would get into boardrooms all the time, and it's like the IT manager's probably been pushing the same ideas for, years at this point in time. But we come in and say, hey, you know what? We've worked in this space for 15 years. I've worked with hundreds of customers. Literally myself, I've worked with hundreds of customers, help them change their processes, help them figure out a better way of using technology to be more efficient. And then we always throw the fun ones in there. Like, we started working with Yeti coolers when they were a startup. We worked their first employee, and we grew with them up through 500 employees, and they're doing, not 500 employees, $500 million in revenue. And they did it with less than 100 employees because they automated, they focused on, automations and only really interacting with the business where you're adding value to it. So a lot of times you just have to bring somebody else in, and that's a part of what we do. Hey, that's even better. If I can walk out of here with one sales lead, then I'm very happy about that.
He's a good friend of a good friend, and it's hard for me to go into a situation, see that this can be a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
And I think this is a better solution than even me writing it, because that's
I've sat down, so we did ERP sales and implementations for a long time. And usually the hardest one to us was a controller. Because we'd go out on the shop floor and be like, hey, we got this software. It's going to figure out how to schedule your jobs. And, it's like the 80-20 rule, but it's going to save you so much time. And they'd sit there and they would argue that they could do a better job with index cards. I've got this giant board of index cards and I move them around until I figure out how it works. We've had this same discussion so many times. Yeah.
That's my whole mindset of what if that person quits? You're ruining you have one system.
For all of you that are in here, you're in a very exciting time of technology, including for manufacturing. You're seeing a new renaissance of software. There's some new things that are coming down the pipe that are going to change the way that software is developed in a lot of ways. We can talk about that offline if you want to talk about those kind of things. But more important than that is that the workforce is starting to get young. There's new people coming into the workforce, and these new people coming into the workforce have expectations about technology. So one of the things that you're going to start seeing is there's going to be more pressure to implement new technology, because you're going to be having these new users coming in and saying, what, I have to go walk over to that terminal over there to put my time in? Like, why would I do that? You know, I grew up with the internet my entire life. You know, you get these millennials in, why would I walk over there when I've got this device right here?
They don't have a computer they have actually you take a sheet, you have to write everything down and then put it over it. And they have a computer there that they're not even using. Half the people time talking.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that we're in an exciting time. I'm excited for all of you to be here. You know, I've talked to you about some of the things that we're going to be looking here. You're going to get presentations the rest of the time from, you know, the sales engineers, from customers. You're going to get presentations from developers talking about different things. And we'll all be around here. Most of us should be in our hoodies or shirts. But if not, just look for the people with the Bezlio name tags. Talk to them. Learn more about the people behind the software. I'll be here obviously both days. Grab any time that you want to talk about things, you want to learn about things, anything like that, I'm available. Other than that, I think we're going to give it a chance to, you know, if people want to use the restroom before we have our keynote presentation, which I'm really excited about. It's another, you know, another local Akron company, and we're excited to go from there.